How many people here use right paren save during a daily work session? Okay. Yeah. The goal in this half hour is to get you to stop using right paren save. All right? That's the goal. I know it said in the abstract that I was going to talk about Git as well. If there's a little time at the end, I may do that, but that's not the point, even though it said that was the point. All right. We have a clear workspace, glorious, clear, what's the word? Unadulterated, not unadulterated, undefiled workspace. And we're a brand new, I'm going to be a brand new APL programmer. And this is great. I'm going to write a function. I've learned this new language, and I'm going to write a function. So I pop in here, and let's say I'm going to write a function, and I'm going to call it sum. And I'm going to put my glasses on. Even with the 87-point font, I can't see it. Okay. We're going to write a sum function, and we're going to do something along the lines of that. And later on, we'll see how to improve that function. It's a little verbose. And I'm going to write another function. We'll get like 2 or 3 functions here. We'll write a, sum, how about a product? That's kind of cool. Let's write a product function. That's not really right. How about that? And one more. We'll write average. Oops. Average. Let's go in there. And we're going to write some reduction. Better put some parens around that. Omega divided by shape of omega. Our newbie average function. We have 3 functions. Now what do? We want to save our work. We're not going to use right paren save. We're going to do something a little different. What do we do here? Whoops. We are going to do, what are we going to do? We're going to do, Phil, what am I going to do? Save. I don't need to do it. We're going to do create project, right? So instead of right paren save, we're going to do right bracket create project. And we can think of that should eventually just be a little right paren create project or something like that. But we're going to use the user command to do it. And instead of, we need to give it a name, so we're going to call it, let's see, I have a folder where I want to put these things. Let's see what it is. I have a folder called Belfast Conference. Belfast Conf, let's go there. So it's Belfast, Belfast Conference. And I'll give it a name, my first project. And I'm going to give it I have to tell it that a little bit different from, when we save a workspace, we save the whole workspace. When we save a project, we're just going to tell it the namespace of the code that we want to save. In this case, it's sitting in the root, so I'm going to save the entire root and everything in it. And it did it. And what happened? We have a little project over here. We can see that. Alt-tab. It created my first project. It's a folder. It's not a .dws file. But for all intents and purposes, you can think of it as the same thing. You can copy it around. You can email it to somebody. So now, what do you do after right paren save? Normally, you do right paren off, and you go home. So we're going to go over here, and we're going to go right paren off. And then we are going to somehow get back to my desktop here. Start up Dyalog again. And we're not going to do load. We will do bracket open project. And I'm going to take this, can everybody see that font? I'm going to make the font a little bit smaller. Is that all right? Okay. So let's open our project. So it's, luckily I can just type this once here, BELFASTCONF, Belfast Conference, my first project, right? My first project, okay. Right, we open it, and if we look at our workspace, we have some functions, right? All right, now we make a change to our function. So let's look at some of these functions. I don't know, can we improve this? Anybody? Anybody make it short? I don't think so. No, that looks pretty good. We'll leave that. Slash bar, okay. How about that? And let's see, how about that function? Anybody have an idea? How do we improve that function? Anybody? Come on. Tally, yes. I love that. I love tally. Is there anything more satisfying than looking at some old code and getting rid of putting tally in everywhere? It's so fun. I love it. Where did it go there? Oops. If I can find it here. Where is it? Hold on. Control Shift. There it is. Look at that. Okay. And we'll even do this. All right. So we made 2 changes. And notice it actually tells us that these 2 functions were saved. When we went in and edited the function and exited the editor, it immediately wrote the function into the project on the disk. So now we can just write paren off again. Come back in the next day, scroll up, hopefully I'll find where I opened that. Open the project, check out our code, and there it is. All right? So, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, now, this is all very well and good, but we were a brand new programmer. And what did we do? Is we just went in the root and we threw all this code in there, and that's just terrible because now we can't really share our code with somebody else. It's not encapsulated in a namespace. If I want to bring in another namespace, it's going to be all mixed in and floating around. So we'd like to put this in a better spot. So what can we do? Well, let's say we come back in tomorrow. Somebody told us we made this mess. Come back in. And instead of opening the project, that's remembering that. Let's get that smaller. Instead of opening the project and just giving the project name, we can say open the project and instantiate all our code in my first project. And now, there are no functions in the root. Whoops. No functions. We just have our namespace, and we can step into it. Right. And there they are. Well, that's all good, but every time we come in the morning, I don't want to have to type the name of the namespace that I want my project to be instantiated in. So let's take a look at what actually is going on here. Where is all this code going, and what's happening with it? So when you create a project, it creates a folder. The folder is the project. You can email the folder to somebody. You can zip it up, send it around. You can rename the folder, copy, paste it, make a new project, just like you do with a namespace. And there are user serviceable parts inside there. So it's not a secret. It's not like an Excel file nowadays that is really a hidden folder with all sorts of nasty stuff in there. So let's go in. I apologize, that's as big as I can get that. So we'll come back to what well, we may not, but there's a little .acre folder. You can ignore that for the moment. And you can ignore the .git ignore. That has to do with Git. Leave that aside. There's 2 very important things in here, 2 things that count. There's the APL source folder, and you can imagine what's in there. And there's a little configuration file called acreconfig.txt. If we look at the source file, APL source, we can see that there are some files in there, and the files are named for our functions. We created average, product, and sum. We'll ignore quad vars. That's some details we can come back to. I want you to ignore two other things in there. The particular extension dot function, we're playing around with, that's probably going to be dot APLF or something like that. And you'll also see this -1. That's just for legacy stuff. You don't need it, and it can disappear. It just happens to be the default on my machine. And I'll come back to what that's about if we have time. The important thing is there is a function named exactly as there's a file in there named exactly for the function, class, operator, variable, whatever you created. And you can go in, and this is the important part, is you can go in and you can look at it. And you can put other stuff in there. And you can edit it right here. Right? We can save this thing. And we can get out of there. And we can go into our... Now, notice I'm going to write paren off here. This does not do two-way stuff. It's not going to, if you edit a file on the disk and you have the project open, it's not going to affect your open project. So I'm going to come back in, open up my project. Take a look at this thing here, functions, and look at average here. What did we change? No, we changed average, and there it is. So you can edit, you can go to that folder and manipulate those files any way you want. You can delete them. You could use any third-party software to do search and replace on it. You can rename it, virtually anything, and then because it is the project, it is the source of your code. All right, so one other thing is we want to take a look at this little configuration file because I don't want to come in every day and type my first project up here on, on this line. I don't want to be typing that every day. So we want to tell the project that it should be, we'll take a look at this file here. We're going to go up to the root here of our project, and we're going to edit this configuration file, which also is user serviceable. You can go in here and change things. So we want to tell it that the project space is pound.myfirstproject. And this, of course, could be as deep as you want, and it will create all the necessary things, right? So we're going to hit OK here. File, save, get out of there, jump back, and let's do this again. Let's get out of here. The mouse is terrible here. All right, now we come in. And we don't really need this bit here anymore. We can delete all this. And now the project knows where it goes. It opens it up. Functions. Whoops. And there it all is. Whoops. Okay, you know where I'm going. Functions. All right. That in essence is it, right? Everything else flows from that. And anything you can do, you can go in there and edit and move folders around. Every namespace is a folder in a subtree in that APL source folder that we saw. And you can go in there and do whatever you want with it. And you can actually construct this from scratch. You can start in the operating system, create a folder, create a subfolder in it called APL source, create a subfolder in that called whatever you want, put a text file in it, make it look like a defun, and then open the thing up. So you can just create the project from nothing in the operating system, for what it's worth. And that's it. So we have some time. take questions about this, or I can do the next step, which is to talk a little bit about Git. Do people want to have some questions about this? Yeah, let's talk.
Thanks. I presume you have a handler on the editor in APL that
yes, we hook
what you've done and
yeah, we hook into the editor. So in the current implementation, if you were to do something like foo gets just assignment in the workspace in the session, that would not get recorded. You have to go into the editor, hit escape, and it writes it out.
So was that difficult? Can you elaborate on what exactly it does? It just writes it out and that's it?
Yeah. It gets the change and puts it on the disk and overwrites the file if it's there, which was the previous one. Yep. Diane.
In the example that you just did, where you were editing the file on disk, okay, is there a way, you did an off to get completely out and then load it back in. Can you say, I want to open this project and then just give it the names of files then that you want to load in?
You can't do it that way. You can certainly just do a refresh. So if you're already in there, you can simply refresh. And it'll go and find everything and just bring everything in that has changed off the disk. I don't think there's a specific way to bring in a single file somewhere. You certainly, I mean, if it was in the project, you would just hit, if it's something that was in your project that you put in there and you're in your work project already in the workspace, you could just refresh it or reload it. I don't know if you would want to be able to bring it in by a specific name.
I'm just thinking of the case where I'm in the middle of running something large. It's taking me a long time to get here. Ooh, I came across this problem.
Right.
I want to go just, maybe somebody already has a patch for that. I just want to move in that one little piece in the middle of running, okay? So I don't want to have to stop and reload to get back, reload the whole project.
Phil might be able to answer that. Can you answer that, Phil?
Yeah, the refresh command looks in the source file. It's keeping a timestamp in the workspace, and it looks in the source file to see if anything has been changed since that point in time, and it just brings it in. So it keeps all your references and your stack and everything else. If you can just open the project over itself,
right?
But that will kill all your references and your SI stack will be damaged.
So refresh would do it, but it probably wouldn't be hard to put in something that says, hey, just bring in this one thing if you wanted.
Could be done, but there's not a lot of point.
Sorry, I'll throw myself into the mix as well. I mean, Paul Mansour did mention that he might talk about Git. The idea of using Acre without source code management is probably not the best idea. And if someone else in the team has made a change and you want to bring it in, it would require you to bring in the change from the public repository. At that point, while you're tracing, I would not suggest that you bring in changes on the fly while tracing. That could cause more issues than it would help.
So some people have got accustomed to using bracket load, the salt user command, to bring in, say, a function. Would that cause a problem if you were to bracket load something into here now? Or
I don't think so. Phil?
One for Phil, probably.
Not since about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, it should work. The goal is that this should work seamlessly with salt.
Yeah, they intertwine. If you bring stuff in from salt and you save it in the editor, then it's saved by salt. And if you bring it in by Acre, then Acre will save that.
Okay, that probably isn't what I want, right? I want to bring a function into my project from a file somewhere, and then I want Acre to take care of it after that.
Well, then you just edit it, and Acre will take care of it.
If you want to bring in a file from a different project, you can simply drop it in your Acre managed project folder and refresh. Even if you have the stack. Yes. The problem I mentioned earlier is if you manage your code in Git and then bring in or pull the latest published version, in which case it might destroy many functions that you have on the stack. But if you're adding a file from a different project, there's no risk.
Yeah, I mean, it just highlights a point. My experience also with playing with these things is that if you want to do this kind of thing, bringing in stuff, merging projects, you're actually better off doing it in the file system. So copy the file into your folder and refresh, rather than trying to bring it into the workspace.
Questions? Right. So I did say, and I'll just talk a little bit about it, and Gil is probably going to talk more about it, but a lot of you have heard of Git. Some of you may use Git. And I've been resisting using Git for many, many years, but I started, and I'm very happy about it. However, it is overwhelming. The Git documentation is complicated. There's a lot of stuff. And I wanted an easier way to sit in my workspace, and I don't want to use any other tools if I can avoid them. I certainly don't want to go to the command line and type git something and try and remember all that. So I developed a little set of Git utilities in APL that allow me to do all the things that I need to do with Git, which is really only a few little commands. So let me show you a couple of them, right now. So we have a new project here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up I didn't demo this, but this will show it right now. I need to open up another project that I have called, I think it's APL projects / Acre tools. So this is a little utility thing that I have here. And, what's it called? Oh, it's called this. Okay. And so I have two projects open, which is one of the main points. You can have as many, unlike a workspace is one thing. You open a workspace, you have a workspace. A workspace can contain many projects. I work with about 5 or 6 projects at one time. Here I have 2 projects open. The one we just created, our beginning project with average, product, and sum, but I have now another project open under Carlisle Group. And I actually have a little reference here to Git that I can dig into. And in fact, it instantiated that under Carlisle Group Acre Tools. So that was the home namespace for that project is down under Carlisle Group. Right. So what can we do with this little Git utility? The first thing I might want to do is I created this new project, but it's not a Git repository. It's just a Acre project or an APL project. We have to tell Git to make this thing a repository so that Git is now monitoring it. So I think we have a little way to do that. I don't create projects every day. You know, you create one and then you just kind of go for a long time. So let's see, we can do, one of the things that we do here is when you're doing stuff with Git for a project, you need to tell it the project. And the way I do that, there's a number of ways, but the way I do that is to be in the project. It's the easiest way to deal with it. So if I want to be in Acre, I want to be in pound.my first project. Okay? And if I'm in here, so that's my namespace, anywhere in it, doesn't have to be in the root, and I do anything with Git, I can see what's going on here. So I can do initialize. Let's see if that works. Okay, so it did something. One of the things I think it did was if we look in there, it made a hidden folder called .git, so we know it kind of did its thing, right? And I've got a little command here, F4, see if that works. Okay, so that tells me all the projects I have open, tells me what branch I'm on, and it tells me how many uncommitted changes I have and any committed changes. So if I were to go in now to my first project, I'm in there, right? What do I have in here? Functions. Let's go in. Let's go into average. Make a change. Okay. Let's see what's going on here now. We can try F7. Whoops. That tells me for the current project that I have an uncommitted change in a nice format, so I can double-click on it and edit it. I can commit the changes, or we can look at the overall situation. I have one uncommitted change, and I can hit F9. I can commit those changes. I didn't like that. Why not? Yeah, I should not need a message. What did I hit? Oh, I do need. Yeah, no, this commit. That's odd. No, I understand that, yeah, but that should automatically do that. Oh, I know, I'm not on the master. In there? Names, I am. Oh, okay, I didn't like it because I'm on the master. Yeah, this will require a commit message. Normally, so this gets to and I'll just give you 1 minute on this. The idea here is you have a few commands that you have thought about, have in there. You don't have to think about Git again. You'll notice here, when we were looking at my projects, on Acre Tools, I'm on a branch called Dev, and on my first project, I'm on a branch called Master. The way I set up a workflow, and this is why it's hard to get started on Git. It was hard for me. You need to have a workflow. It's not clear where you do your work. It's easy to make a branch. You have to understand what a branch is. So my workflow was, you don't work on the master branch. You create a new branch. You generally call it dev or temp or whatever you want to call it. You work on that. When you commit to that, you don't need a fancy commit message. It's just a save point. You're just constantly saving your work and not worrying about it. Then you merge it into the master branch. I hit a key to do that. It collapses all your changes and your commits. And at that point, you give it a meaningful commit message. So anyway, the point is that you need to get a simple workflow. If you're a standalone programmer, it's really easy to do. Or if you're a small group, I think the same kind of workflow works. It may not work if you're a big 100-person company, but coming up with a simple Git workflow for me was critical to using Git and having 3 or 4 function keys to do everything I want and never worrying about it. And then there's one to push it up to the server and all that kind of stuff. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.